I'm getting ready to share a number with you that's going to blow your mind if you are a Christian. But before I share the number, consider the fact that the Bible is the most sold book on the entire planet. But we still have 1,000 different languages where not a single portion of Scripture has been translated. And listen, where you're watching from, the average home has over 4 Bibles in it. Yet 40% of the entire world's population is considered unreached. Now first, one big question that we need to ask is just terms, definitions. Okay, I said unreached. What does that mean? It means that less than 5% of the entire population follows Jesus. Now, when a population has 5% or less of Christians, that just means that they can't actually reach their own population by themselves. They need outside help, they need assistance in order to be able to share the gospel, in order to be able to make Jesus known among their own people. Now, taking that a little bit further, we say, why does this matter? Let me explain. Gospel access matters because of what Paul said right here. In Romans 10, verses 14 through 15, he said, "How then can they call on him whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent?" You see, people's eternity, it's impacted by gospel access. People being able to hear about Jesus. It's impacted by someone sharing about Jesus. When someone shares Jesus and people get to have the opportunity to hear about Jesus, they have the opportunity to choose Jesus. And if they choose to follow him and believe in him, they have the opportunity to be saved. And yet Paul's making the point that, hey, if people don't have the opportunity, their eternity, it's at stake. Their opportunity to know Jesus for eternity, to live with him, to experience freedom and hope and life, what we've been able to experience, that is at risk when people don't have access to the gospel. And he's making this case to say that people need to go. Now, this may not mesh with your theology, and yet we need to make sure that our theology doesn't actually contradict what we see Paul the apostle and even Jesus and the authors that we read in the Bible is telling us and making clear. Now, Jesus also makes the case saying, "Go, therefore, and make disciples among all nations." You see, we have this opportunity to bring the gospel so that people can know Jesus. And Jesus expected us to go and make sure the gospel went to all people as well, because without the opportunity to hear about Jesus, they missed the opportunity to have life in eternity with him. And that matters dearly to Jesus. All right, so how do we gauge gospel access? We can look at the world in 3 different categories. The first is the Christian part of the world, then there's the non-Christian part of the world, and the no access to Jesus, never heard of him part of the world. Now, when we're talking about the Christians, that's all of us that are following Jesus, love Jesus, in relationship with Jesus. We go to church to learn more about Jesus, that whole world, right? And then you have the non-Christian part of the world. There are neighbors, the people that we could reach if we decided to go out of our house and not watch Netflix, but actually engage neighbors. These people have access, they have opportunity, they live next door, but they choose not to follow Jesus, or they certainly could learn about him if they wanted to. And then you have the never heard of Jesus portion of the world. Now, some numbers show that this is around 29% of the world. When you change the terms to the unreached population of the world, it actually goes as high of up to 40 to 42% of the entire world's population. Now, this category of people, these are the people where when you say Jesus, they say what river? They don't have the opportunity to learn about Jesus, to follow Jesus, to know who he is. It's not like they know a Christian. And so these are the people where someone would have to go and be willing to share about Jesus so that they have the opportunity to decide if they want to follow him or learn more about him or believe in him. This unreached, never heard of Jesus number, this is like 3.28 billion people on the planet. This is a ton of people who've never heard of Jesus and have no access to him. Let me break down these numbers for you by showing you some Bibles. Each Bible represents 10% of the total missionaries on the world, and if we have 435,000 missionaries, every Bible, there's 10 of them, is 10% of that, 43,000 missionaries, all packed into a Bible. And it's really fitting because, Bibles have access to Jesus. But Bibles don't walk on their own and can't fly over to that group and introduce themselves. So we need someone to carry the message. So if we were to consider where do the missionaries actually go when we look at the real data, it looks more like 72% of all missionaries go to the Christian world. And about 25% of all missionaries go to the non-Christian world that has high access, our neighbors and those people who pass churches or could talk to believers if they wanted to. And then only about 3% of all missionaries actually go to the unreached part of the world. Now keep in mind this category, this is 40% of the entire world, over 3 billion people, and they don't actually get even a full group of missionaries. They get just a portion of the people who've dedicated themselves to sharing about Jesus and saying that they will go where the void is. So the people who have no access to Jesus, no opportunity to know about Jesus, and you say Jesus, they say what river, only 3% of all the missionaries on average go to these people. This, my friend, is an injustice. Let me share with you some more numbers to help you grasp the state of the world when it comes to missions. Check this out. Approximately 60,000 people die each day without access to Jesus. 30-1. 30 times more missionaries are going to go work with Christians and reach people groups than go to the unreached. That means that only 1 out of every 209,000 Christians are actually going to go as a missionary to the 40% of the world that has no access to Jesus. There's just 1 missionary for every 405,000 Muslims. 1 missionary for every 260,000 Buddhists. 1 missionary for every 179,000 Hindus. 1 missionary for every 60,000 tribals. We can actually solve this problem. This could be solved in our lifetime and in our generation because the data says and shows that the Big C Church, when we all work together, we have over 3,000 times the resources to solve this problem. We have over 9,000 times the manpower to make sure that the gospel makes it to the very ends of the earth and everyone has the opportunity to be able to hear about Jesus and follow him if they wanted to. We can take care of the issue of injustice when it comes to gospel poverty and allowing people the opportunity to know and find Jesus. And I want to invite you to consider that. Now here's the deal. I have a lot more to share. You can check out the description for notes, for sources, for more data, for even helpful steps if you want to take a next one. But I want to leave you with this big question, and that is, what is God saying to you, and what are you going to do about it? It's not even an entire Bible's worth of people working with the unreached. It is closer to only, wow, this Bible's a lot harder to tear. I thought it was gonna tear. oh my goodness. I'm gonna have to practice that. Hey friend, I hope you got a kick out of that epic fail when I first tried to tear the Bible, if you're watching that right now. And also, listen, down below in the description, I've got tons of information and URLs and tools and resources to help you learn more about missions and where I got this data from. I'd love to hear from you in the comments, any questions that you have. And if you want to learn more about missions and discipleship, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel. Finally, check out this next video right here to learn more about the topic of missions and the dilemma surrounding it.